Hello there. Next year, 2025, in February, WineSearcher will be one of the principal sponsors of New Zealand's Pinot Noir 2025 conference in Christchurch. It's an event we're very much looking forward to, as we actually haven't had one of these conferences since 2017. As a result, I thought it would be apposite for me to take a look at some of New Zealand's leading Pinot Noirs. And when I was looking for a wine to taste, I lighted on the Quartz Reef 2022 Pinot Noir from Bendigo in Central Otago. And I thought this would be a great place to start for three reasons. Firstly, Quartz Reef were the first producers to plant vines in the Bendigo sub-region of Central Otago, so they're pioneers there. Secondly, they've been fervent advocates of both organic and biodynamic production in New Zealand. They're certified both for organic and biodynamic viticulture. And thirdly, their winemaker, general manager and a partner in the business, Rudi Bauer, is possibly one of the most passionate and charismatic advocates of growing Pinot Noir in Central Otago, and in fact in New Zealand, that you're likely to encounter. Rudi's a talented winemaker who's been voted New Zealand Winemaker of the Year on two occasions, both in 1999 and in 2010. Rudi, however, was born in Austria, in Salzburg in fact, and studied viticulture and enology there. He first visited New Zealand in 1985 when he came with a 6-month working visa to be the assistant winemaker at Mission Estate in Hawke's Bay. It turns out he fell in love with the country, its wines, and a Kiwi girl. He says not necessarily in that order of importance. So in the end, Rudi stayed working at Mission in Hawke's Bay for 4 years, but also working in the Northern Hemisphere in California and Oregon during New Zealand's winter months. It was really while working in Oregon that he caught the Pinot Noir, came back to New Zealand eager to explore what he could do with the variety here. In 1989, Rudi came to Central Otago, where he went to work in Winemaker for Rippon vineyards. While making wine there, evidently he made the first gold medal winning Pinot Noir that the region had produced. And in 1990, while working for Rippon, it was the first time he went to the area that is now the Bendigo sub-region. 1991 saw Rudi move to the Canterbury region, where he worked for 5 years for Giesen Brothers. Again, during this time he worked vintages in the Northern Hemisphere, so in 1992 he worked in Burgundy for Mio Camusset in Vosne-Romanée. Finally, in 1996, Rudi teamed up with John Perriam, the owner of Bendigo Station, a 12,000 hectare sheep station, and Trevor Scott, a Winemaker accountant. The three of them became partners in Quartz Reef. It was in 1998 that planting began for their estate vineyard. Now, the estate vineyard is a 15 hectare vineyard on a north-facing slope, and its soils comprise clays, fine gravel and quartz. At a later stage, the Loop Road vineyard was planted, and that adjoins the estate vineyard. Just below it on the hill, it's a less steep slope, and there the soils are more sandy loams. But again, that's another 15 hectares of vineyard. That comprises Quartz Reef's vineyard holdings. Quartz Reef has made a speciality out of making bottle-fermented sparkling wines, as well as its table wines. Therefore, as well as Pinot Noir, they also cultivate other varieties for sparkling wine. So there's Chardonnay, although they make table wines with that as well. They also have Pinot Gris, and possibly due to Rudi's Austrian heritage, they also have Gruner Veltliner planted. As I've already alluded to, the estate is certified both as organic by BioGrow and as biodynamic by Demeter, and I believe they're one of only 6 vineyards in New Zealand that is certified as such. And that certification came in 2011. One of their approaches is to close plant the vines, so planting density varies between 3,500 and up to 5,000 vines per hectare. For this particular wine, the fruit was handpicked between the 17th and the 21st of March in 2022. Now, the different clones of Pinot Noir planted in the vineyard were all vinified in separate batches. And for each batch, a small percentage of whole bunches was included in the fermentation. Some people, when they're doing whole bunch fermentations, will simply keep a batch of whole bunch ferment that will later be blended into the final wine. However, fermentation here all goes on in small batches, and each batch gets a portion of this whole bunch fermentation. Fermentation was actually preceded by a cold soak, so the crushed fruit was left macerating for a week before the indigenous yeasts were allowed to instigate fermentation. So there was no inoculation with cultured yeast. This was entirely the yeast strains that are in the winery or on the fruit as it comes into the wine. Gentle pigeage continued for up to 9 days after fermentation had finished, and the different lots spent between 21 and 26 days on skins. The wine was drained into French oak barriques, 27% of which were new, and it underwent malolactic conversion in barrel and aged in barrel for a year prior to being bottled. So let's have a look at the wine, shall we? I'll pop this in a nice big glass to give me plenty of space to be able to swirl it and to get the aromas to release themselves. The colour seems relatively dark, but it's not very deep. I can see through that very easily, but it is a sort of a black red. There's a reddish purple to the rim. Swirling the wine, it has, according to its label, 14% alcohol, but it doesn't seem particularly viscous. It's not clinging intently to the glass there. It's just starting to form a few tears, but they're not sort of convincing. So let's see what we make of the aromas, shall we? The aromas are rich and they're wonderfully enticing. There are some really beautiful perfumes in there. Everything is very well integrated. So you have red fruit notes. There's almost a sort of a soft fruit, a ripe strawberry, a raspberry note with an underlying but beautifully integrated vanilla and perhaps hints of sweet spice coming from the oak. But these are just hints. They're very well integrated. And then you've got the red fruit sort of continuing to build. There are mulberry notes. I suppose there are red plum notes. But then there's a really sort of rich, dark fruit that is a very classic style for the Pinot Noir of Otago. And you've almost got a sort of a boysenberry richness in there. It's a very juicy, dark fruit. It's very opulent. And behind that, there are sort of slight barnyard notes, slightly leathery notes. There's something slightly wild and animal about this. But then it's all reined in by that sort of beautiful sort of vanilla and rich dark red fruit. I find that very enticing, very enjoyable. So let's have a taste. On the palate, that's quite weighty for a Pinot Noir. And there is some obvious alcohol warmth at the back there. But that's helping to give a richness and a roundness to the fruit. And actually, it's pulling out the sort of the sweet spice notes. There's a lovely hint of cinnamon, almost a sort of gingery touch. Just over the beautiful plush red fruit, you've got a velvety texture. You know, there are plenty of tannins in there, but they're very fine. They've got a smoothness. They're not astringent and drying. And they're coupled to that sort of vanilla, cocoa butter, those sort of notes. Chocolatey hints, perhaps, on the mid-palate. Although a milk chocolate rather than a dark chocolate, it hasn't quite got that sort of richness and concentration on the mid-palate. There's still a bursting, vibrant mulberry note of red fruit that's keeping it lively. The acidity doesn't stand out, but it is giving a lively, juicy nature to the fruit that makes it quite appealing. On the back palate, there is that sort of richness. I was talking about an animal nature. There is almost a sort of a hint of earthiness and mushroom, just visible beneath the sort of the beautiful, velvety red fruit texture and flavours as you head towards the finish. Beautifully integrated vanilla notes are showing. And there's a red fruit perfume that endures beautifully. This is still a young wine with a massive potential to develop. I think it has some lovely typicity for Otago. It's got that sort of really quite dark fruit nature for Pinot that Central Otago Pinots classically show. It's got a bit of weight on the mid palate, and yet it has enough freshness to rein it in at the finish. So yes, I think a really enjoyable wine, and certainly one that I would be happy to keep for 5 or 6 years to see how it develops, and would probably age for 10 years. Now, the one thing I found as I was researching this was that actually last month Rudi Bauer has decided to sell Quartz Reef, and so it's actually on the market. You can find it online. There's an agent, Colliers, is marketing it, and I do hope that whoever purchases Quartz Reef manages to continue the work that Rudi's done, because some of the wines he's made there have been such wonderful classic reference examples for what Central Otago wines should be like, and excellent indicators of the potential of New Zealand's Pinot Noirs. It would be a shame to lose Quartz Reef as a leading light of Otago's wine scene. Just with regard to the wine, I should come back and say our aggregated score for this, there's one score, the score for this vintage of this wine is 94 out of 100. I have seen other critics who we don't list giving higher marks than that. So I think this is a wine that at a not particularly high price is offering some fabulous value for money in terms of its quality, its ability to age, its wonderful typicity for its region, and its beautiful harmony at what is a relatively early stage of its life. So thank you so much for watching. I do hope you found the video of interest. If you've enjoyed it, please press the like button. If you'd like to watch more of our videos, it'd be fantastic if you subscribe to our channel. If you do that, you can set an alert to be sure that you're informed as soon as we publish a new video. If you have any comments you'd like to leave, please do pop those in the comments box below. We'd love to hear what you think about the wines we're looking at, the tastings we're doing, or anything else related to that. If you have friends you think might like to watch the video, it'd be fantastic if you could forward them the video. We would really appreciate that endorsement from you. But most importantly, do please see if you can find some time and come and join us for another tasting in the very near future. Thanks again. Bye for now.